37 million adults across the country tune in to a weekday breakfast radio show. That's 4 in 5 of all listeners across the UK. We know that breakfast has long been established as the most important time of the day, whether it's for food intake or for your daily diet of radio. It commands the biggest audience by time of day and forms very much part of the whole breakfast routine, however calm or chaotic that may be. We know radio is still very much recognised as a secondary medium. 61% of adults say that they often have the radio on in the background whilst doing something else. Yet people remain engaged. That's the power of radio, to inform, energise, relax. It can paint pictures with words. Indeed, some say that it is the most visual medium. We know that listening as an activity is habitual. 2/3 of it is done in the home, and the majority of radio sets in the home are tuned to the same station all the time, especially those sets in the kitchen. This correlates with the peak listening time being at breakfast. This habitual nature of radio listening behaviour can mean a very strong reaction when a station makes a change to its name or presenter, resulting in an immediate loss of audience, before hopefully in time recovering. We saw this when Virgin changed to Absolute, and Terry Wogan being replaced by Chris Evans, and we see it everywhere in business, and especially financial markets. In economics, they call this the J-curve, which is essentially a model about risk that describes a short-term pain for a long-term gain. I guess the point I want to make here is that in the digital age, and radio is no exception, the time frame of judgment on decision-taking is shortening. People expect instant data, and they are getting it, but that doesn't necessarily lead to good insight and good decisions. So what else do we know about radio nowadays? We all know that in an environment of digital interactivity and social media, entertainment is by far the main reason people listen to the radio. This is often defined as mood and music, but not exclusively so. News and celebrity also feature as drivers to listening, and so does localness. Radio's strength as a medium centres on its relationship between the presenter and the listener. Radio is a conversation. It is the social medium. But the audio landscape is more complex now, with multiple internet-delivered, catch-up or on-demand services. People thought the iPod would kill the radio star. It didn't. Obviously, content is an important driver to station listening, but it's a two-way process. It is the output that really matters, and also the input. How engaged is the listener? Personality, environment and mood are therefore key factors which impact on breakfast listening. Let's look at each in turn. Presenters are carefully selected to hopefully carry that audience on with the station throughout the rest of the day. Headlines are often built around breakfast show presenters. And the odd witty quote too. If we think about Radio 1's breakfast show, which launched on the 30th of September 1967, we see here that Tony Blackburn lasted nearly 6 years. The average lifespan of a Radio 1 breakfast DJ is 3 years and 4 months, if we exclude Mark Goodyear, who was always going to be temporary. This puts Chris Moyles' tenure into perspective, with his 8-year, 8-month reign recently coming to an end. It's important to think about how their personalities fit with the desired audience. I'll let you have a nostalgic pause on that slide. Let's now look at environment. Environment is dictated by location, presence of other people, and technology. Our opportunities to listen to radio have been enhanced with the availability of digital platforms. One should not underestimate social media as a platform to enhance listener engagement with the station and the presenter, a platform for the listener to share content. A 3-minute clip of a radio broadcast on YouTube, for example, may get far more views than the full show gets for its audience figures. It's a great marketing platform. Chris Moyles has over 2.5 million followers on Twitter and received 150,000 texts in his last show. I have heard it said that Twitter is the modern equivalent of shouting at the radio, which must have made for a deafening exchange of tweets with Moyles. Twitter does not build reach, but it can drive loyalty when listeners get noticed, replied to, mentioned, or retweeted. Environment can impact on station loyalty, particularly if our routine is disrupted for whatever reason. Are we loyal to the same breakfast radio show week in, week out? For the last year, Ipsos MediaCT funded our MediaCell London panel. This panel has downloaded the MediaCell mobile app that passively captures listening to the 13 participating stations broadcasting a specially encoded inaudible signal. What this means is that we can continuously measure the listening traffic that ebbs and flows in radio at breakfast, and indeed all times of the day, from one week to the next, from station to station. So, for example, taking a random week in July, we had 88 listeners and 16 non-listeners to breakfast radio. Of the 88, 73 also listened the following week, but 15 did not. Of the 16 non-listeners in the first week, 9 did not listen in the next week either, but 7 did, and so on. I hope you get the idea. We know exactly what other stations they listen to, which enable us to build a patchwork quilt of listener switching behaviour. We also know instantly the impact of new presenters taking over from old ones, but let's not forget that time frame of judgment I talked about earlier. It opens up some really granular and fascinating insights into audience behaviour. Environment segues nicely into mood. Sitting on one's own with the perfect cup of coffee on a beautiful October morning may lead to a different mood when compared to chasing around after children as you get ready for the school run. But then again, what is normal routine for you could be different to your next door neighbour. We know that media can affect mood in a positive way, and that radio plays a big part in this. Thanks to the RAB's work on media and the mood of the nation, we know that radio has the biggest influence on people's happiness and energy levels compared with other media at most times of the day, and breakfast is all important here, correlating nicely with advertising receptiveness. From work Ipsos has done itself, there are typically 8 mood states that we are in at breakfast time, and where you are on the spectrum will dictate the kind of station you want to listen to, and indeed how predisposed you are to switching. In our other video podcast from this seminar, we take you through in more detail breakfast moods and share with you some brand new, previously unpublished research. So, radio remains very strong in overall reach terms around the breakfast table. Yet we are witnessing different trends in behaviour in how people consume radio in our relentless digital 24/7 world, if not necessarily when and where they consume it. Thank you for listening.